Thank you. Now Mr. Hussain to reply.
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Hello once again. So, I don't feel Richard touched on most of my points. Like, most of his opening statements were red herrings. Like, sources for the Quran and historical stuff, that stuff is for tomorrow, it's not for today. It's not possible for me to respond to so many different points in 6 minutes. But I want to talk about some of the things that he brought up in his opening statement. Like, for example, he says, Jesus forgave sins. Is that supposed to prove he's God? Because the Pharisees got angry. But what about Matthew chapter 9, where it quotes the people who said, how glorious is God that he gave man such authority? As James Dunn points out in his book, Parting of the Ways, the reason the Pharisees were angry is they were thinking, on what authority is he telling him that his sins are forgiven? He's not part of the temple cult. So it wasn't that he was claiming to be God. So if Jesus telling somebody that his sins are forgiven makes him God, then I'd like Richard to tell us if the disciples are God. Because in John chapter 20, the disciples can also forgive sins. He also said that the high priest yelled blasphemy because Jesus said that I am and Daniel's clouds on the heaven. But the point is, if you go to Luke's gospel and you go to other manuscripts of Mark, what Jesus actually said is, you say that I am. And when he quoted Daniel's prophecy, that doesn't mean that the person in Daniel is God, because it says that person was given dominion. God cannot be given dominion. And even Jews who interpreted Daniel's prophecy never understood it as being somebody who's actually God. The word worship for the person is son of man is also used for David's wife, who worshipped, in inverted commas, David. And David Klinghoffer in his book, Why the Jews Reject Jesus, also mentioned that the word for worship there can also be used to pay homage to another man. And Dr. Michael L. Brown, in his book, Answering Jewish Objections to Jesus, he's a Christian scholar, admits that that's the case. So Daniel chapter 7 doesn't prove that Jesus is God. And moreover, you quoting that text actually refutes that Jesus is God, because that text is a false prophecy. Jesus said to the high priest, you shall see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. But that high priest died 2,000 years ago, and Jesus never came in the clouds of heaven. So can you explain that false prophecy, please, Richard? Then he said, there's something special about Jesus. He calls God Father. But all Jews call God Father. Malachi called God Father. Isaiah called God Father. Deuteronomy calls God Father. So that don't make Jesus special. He also said that he first claimed that Jesus' followers wrote the New Testament. But then I've showed biblical scholars who confirmed that Matthew and Luke copied from Mark. They actually changed the image of Jesus. Did eyewitnesses need to go to Mark, who's not an eyewitness, and copy from him? No. So you haven't proven that the New Testament's from eyewitnesses. Paul was an eyewitness. So you're just saying things about Jesus, what other people said, but I quoted you Jesus. Then he said there were no controversy with the church fathers. Yeah, there were disputes between Muslims regarding Tawheed, but nowhere on the level of who Jesus was. Some church fathers believe Jesus had a beginning. Some of them believe that Origen, for example, one of the greatest church fathers, believed Jesus was subordinate to the Father. So it took 4 centuries for the Nicene Creed to become official. He also said that there's no evidence that Abraham and Ishmael built the Kaaba. I can quote the Talmud and a lot of non-Islamic sources to show that, but I will issue a challenge to you. Can you give me a non-biblical source that shows that dead people rose up in Jerusalem and started walking around like Matthew claims? Can you show me one source, please? Give me one historian, Josephus, or anyone from the 1st century who heard anybody say that dead people rose up when Jesus allegedly got crucified and walked into Jerusalem. If you can't show me a source, you've refuted your own argument, and that's inconsistency. He says the Quran got mixed up regarding the sister of Aaron. But in the Quranic language, when somebody is from the tribe of someone, they can be called the brother or sister of that person. So we believe that Mary was from the tribe of Levi, which 2nd century Christian sources confirm. So the earliest biographies we got of Mary claim she was from Levi, not from Judah. So we believe that she was called sister of Aaron in the sense of being from the tribe of Aaron. But if that's an error for the Quran, what are you going to do about, I believe it's Matthew chapter 23, where Jesus claimed the Jews killed Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, between the altar. But if you go to the Old Testament, it wasn't Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, who died near the altar. It was Zechariah, the son of Jehodiah. So Jesus mixed up the two Zechariahs. I'd like you to respond to that, please. He says, Deuteronomy can't refer to Muhammad because the word countryman means fellow Israelite. Actually, Genesis chapter 16 explicitly calls Ishmael the brethren of his brothers, which is Isaac and the other sons of Ishmael, Abraham. In Deuteronomy chapter 2, the Edomites, who are Arabs, are called the brethren of the Israelites. So you have a contradiction there. Then if you claim Deuteronomy 18 is talking about a fellow Israelite, then Deuteronomy chapter 34 denies that a prophet in Israel can be like Moses. This is why the Jewish Study Bible claims there's a contradiction in this text. The only explanation is brethren refers to an Arab, not to a fellow Israelite. He says that Muslims have been combing the Old Testament for prophecies of Muhammad. Who said that we need to go to the Greek of John to find Muhammad's name? The Syriac, which many of the many of the Eastern Christians from the 4th, 5th, and 6th century, they read their New Testament in Syriac, and the word Munahma is the Syriac form of the Arabic Ahmad, which is a superlative form of Muhammad. So we can find him by name. But now I got a challenge for you. Matthew chapter 2, verse 23 claims that the Old Testament has a prophecy that he will be called a Nazarene. I'd like you to show me where this sentence is in the Old Testament, that he will be called a Nazarene. So we'll see how you comb through the Old Testament. Regarding... 6 minutes done. All right, thanks a lot.
Would you like a minute? No, that's fine. Thank you.